Hey guys, I'm Nick. We're doing our joint book talk on Francois Bereaud's San Diego stories, and I'm joined by
Brittany.
This is supposed to be kind of freeform, so we'll see where discussion leads us. And I think a good starting point would just be, what was your favorite story, why, and what else did you like about the book?
So the story that I feel like I connected with the most was Intersection. I don't know if you guys can see that picture, but it took place at City College. Like, some of the story took place in City College, and I thought it was really great because I live across the street from there, so I passed that building. Yeah, I think I really enjoyed it because it seemed like it was a two-strand thing that was happening. You had the story of Professor B, but you also had the story of Brandon, and you saw the ways in which they were intersecting. And even just what happened to Brandon with, like, getting in the altercation with the cops on campus and eventually being hit by a car and dying, and, like, having his kidney be transplanted to Professor B's friend. Maybe not the transplant part, but I feel like the altercation with the cops, even just, like, untimely death, I feel like those are themes that, like, really hit when you read stories. And so I think that I really like this because of, like, the setting, but also because I feel like that was so real. I also think that, like, the character of Professor B, like, really, what's the word? I feel like it really just kind of, like, rubbed me the wrong way in some ways. And so I felt like that was very real, though. And so I think that I had to sit with, like, oh, like, why am I so bothered by this character? And so I think that just added to, like, my really love of that short story in the collection.
Yeah, and I think, like, conflicting characters and conflicting opinions on life in San Diego and things like that is kind of like a theme that you see across a lot of the stories in the book. So
yeah.
And were there any other, like, just broader stroke things about the novel that you enjoyed? Maybe like how it, like, used the setting. I think that was something we, like, discussed a lot in class.
Yeah, the setting I do like. I know that the last book in the series was, like, Jesus Christ Bail Bondsman or something like that. And Golden Bail Bonds. Jesus Christ Golden Boy Bail Bonds. Funny enough, I was downtown last week and I saw that place.
Oh, really?
Yes, I saw it and it made me think of this, and I'm like, wow, I should mention that when we do our video. Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, well, that gives you a sense that, like, this is also, like, from someone who's actually from the city and, like, is familiar with it. Yeah, and that's, I think, just from, like, the writing angle of things, like, it's important to be familiar with what you're writing with, right? Especially if that's the setting.
Yeah. What about you, though? Like, what book stuck out to you and why?
Yeah, so I like the story The Knife. I liked it for a similar reason to yours, which I think was that there were sort of conflicting opinions on how I felt about some of the characters at the end of the story. And I think that's a good thing for a short story. One thing we often say in, like, our classes is it doesn't always need to be wound up in, like, a nice little bow. Like, it can be a little nebulous, a little ideally, ambiguous, like, not vague but ambiguous. And I thought that story was interesting because Bereaud was also using what I picked up on as, like, maybe some meta textual things, mainly because that's a first person story, and the narrator is dealing a lot with sort of people around him, cops, who may have seen a crime that he's, like, showing them evidence of, but they're not able to actually see it. Like, there's some kind of, like, disconnect there.
Okay.
Either maybe they don't believe his evidence or his testimony or whatever it is. But at the same time, this character also smuggles a suspicious package over the border. And he doesn't really ask questions about that. And though he's a first-person narrator, and there's many points where he is sort of, we're in his head with his thoughts, but he's very absent about what exactly that encounter is about. And eventually comes to a guy that's referred to as Machete Man, who approaches his car and takes the package from him and basically says, like, you were never here, or you never saw me, and then gives him a little, like, nick across the arm with the machete. And at the end, he's trying to put together a crime novel in his, like, apartment, home, wherever, and he looks down at the blood and he can't remember how it got there. And I thought, with that sort of thing about the knife crime that the police don't see, the crime about the package that might be, I suppose, maybe some drugs from across the border or something else illegal, and then also his own crime novel writing. It seemed like Bereaud was kind of playing with, like, as people living in cities, what levels of crime are visible to us. So I think, like, with that character, he was the narrator. He was like very adamant about getting this crime that's legible to him solved, right? Like a mugging, you know, someone pulling a knife, a threatening, whatever. But then he's not really understanding, like, maybe the more bigger global issues that, like, San Diego is like a border city and, like, exists next to another country with issues with the drug trade. I mean, just as much as America, and how that plays into the crime that goes on here. And I think that makes really good use of the setting being San Diego as well. You know, it's like, if you're gonna set a crime-based short story here, talking about some of that trade that goes on across the border, I think is important. So I like that story a lot, yeah.
Do you feel like the story that you like out of the collection, do you feel like it's similar to any of the writing that you do, or do you feel like it's different? Like, where do you feel like?
I mean, where I liked it was that usually when I try and write, like, first person characters, I try and play around with the unreliability of the narrator. And I thought that was kind of, when I was talking about, like, the metatextual elements of that story, like, part of the meta, I think, was the fact that it's like, he is notably not talking about some of the other activities that he partakes in. And, like, to me, that was sort of like reading of, like, kind of a particular American mindset where it's like, I'm quick to call out crime, but also not quick to analyze myself and kind of look at, like, maybe how I'm breaking the law in certain scenarios. So I thought that was why it was very interesting. And it's, like, similar to your story. It's just like, you feel conflicted about it. It's like, he's trying to do the right thing by reporting this crime, but, like, he also is enabling it to a degree as well. So, yeah.
I will say, though, that I feel like for myself that I find I enjoyed the stories, but I feel like that was one of the stories where I had to read it twice because I did feel like he was very unreliable in that story. And I think that confused me a bit. And I'm like, wait, so was he a part of this? Was he not a part of this? Is it, like, the story actually about him? Or is it, like, is he just writing this story? Like, what exactly is, like, taking place? So, interesting.
Yeah, and I like that one too because it's short enough to where I think you can reread it. Like, it's not, like, I think the last one we were talking about, Jesus Christ, Golden Boy Bail Bonds, right? Yeah. That story is a lot longer. That's like a 30, maybe 40 page. It's almost like a novella.
I was just about to say, I think it was almost novella length.
Yeah, at the end. And so, like, that's something that, like, would I read it again? Maybe, like, years down the line, but not, like, right away. But for this one, I was like, okay, I kind of see something here. Let me read it again one more time quickly. And that's something we've spoken about too, is, like, short stories as a medium are also meant to be reread more than once. Whereas a novel is something like maybe you read it 5 years later, you reread it again. Yeah, but it's not that immediate, right?
Yes.
So, yeah. And one of the questions I also had is, were there any line-to-line craft techniques that you think Bereaud was using well that you were picking up on, like things that more from, like, your writer, like, analysis side of things?
Line-to-line craft techniques. I think, I don't know. I think I just like the way that, like, he wove the two stories together, but also I think I like the dialogue because I think initially I didn't understand why the professor and his friend were, like, having these conversations in the beginning. But I think that as the story went on, it feels like a lot of the dialogue that was taking place was between the professor and his friend who would eventually get the kidney. And so I think that at the end, when I realized it, I'm like, oh, like, it feels more full circle. So I feel like I like the way that he used, like, I didn't really understand it in the beginning. I'm like, oh, is this guy, like, I think his name is Mike, but it's like, is Mike, like, you know, a large part of the story? And then it switched to Brandon. I'm like, I don't really understand. But then at the end, when he got the kidney, I feel like I understood the way that he was, like, trying to paint the picture there.
Yeah, like how he's trying to set it up. I'd also say, I was going to say dialogue I liked. I also thought he just had good, like, humor that was kind of, like, not overpowering, like, in the text. So, like, sometimes I think, like, if your tone is always like humorous, then like it can get in the way sometimes of the story you're trying to tell. And I think he did a good job of like cracking jokes, adding levity, when he had to, and like he seems like, you know, like a lot of these characters also are pretty normal people. Like I'd say like you can one thing that's probably good about this collection is you can kind of like insert into a lot of these characters probably a lot, like very easily. Despite that, I wouldn't say that like the stories are boring or like uneventful. Like I think like he's still putting people that might be, you know, just average city goers into positions that kind of push maybe the boundaries of like their how comfortable they are and things like that. I'm thinking about the story with like the woman who the kid like breaks into her house.
Oh yeah, the first story,
right, with the
like the crown jewel, I think is what it,
and so I think that's like a prime example of it. So, but is there anything else you'd like to say before we start wrapping the discussion up?
Yeah, I think I like what you were saying about that. I do feel like that was something that it took me a minute to get into the stories. I think because that was the first one, the crown jewel one. Yeah. With the kid breaking in and just like her reaction and how she was like trying to feed him and just like care for him, which I thought was interesting. But I think that something I noticed about his stories were like he's not interested in creating characters like I think you said this apart from this discussion, but like he's not very interested in creating characters where like at the end like the bow is wrapped, like everything just kind of like comes together. I think that he's not afraid to have messy characters and like have characters where you're like, what exactly is going on here? But I think that just makes it more real. Like I think it makes it just more realistic.
And yet the plots still also converge. So it's like he's not robbing you of where it's going towards. It's just that where the characters feel and where they are after those events happen isn't always concrete. But I think that's fine. Like we were saying for the short story format. So yeah. All right.
Well, thank you guys for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed this. I'm Brittany once again.
Nick.
And we hope you guys have a great day.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.